Namaste, everybody. Welcome once again. And we are back again with the team. We have Dr. Kanholy, Krishnan, and Dr. Togi here as well. Today, we're continuing with the series that we started with the Guru Purnima. So today, Santhip has come with a very, very fascinating topic that we will be discussing. This topic is something that we had discussed a couple of years ago. We have also presented some of these concepts in the Sedona Vedic Astrology Conference that happened was it in 2018 or 2019? No, not 19, I think 2017, I guess.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
2018 we presented, correct?
2018, okay.
18, okay,
Yeah, 17 was our first. We did not present anything on 17.
Yeah, 2018 was correct. Yeah. True.
2018. So this is very, very fascinating topic on nakshatra and animals, the animal totems related to nakshatras. And Santhip is come with some very interesting pointers also in terms of Kerala astrology. He's also trying to be discussing about some Egyptian pantheon deities and Hindu pantheon deities as well when it comes to these animals. So that was going to be very, very interesting today. So over to you, Santhip. Please, let us know what you have today in your Pandora's box and what you want to present on the nakshatra theme of things.
Sure, Dr. Pai. Thank you. Namaste, everyone. And thank you, Dr. Pai, for again inviting me to this series of lectures and to make me part of that. Really honored to always come to my teacher's channel. So that's always great. So today I have an interesting topic in the sense of having to analyze nakshatra animals and karma. So this is a very interesting topic because animals have been linked with the nakshatras for a really long time. And there have been many interesting kind of things, you can approach it with. So, and of course, each of the grahas have their own animal associations, as we know. So Venus can be linked with horses, and Jupiter can be linked with elephants, and so forth. Now at the nakshatra level, you have a very interesting, the animal association has been given actually. Now, one thing I must say is that on the onset, none of the animal associations is there in any texts as such. So classics and so forth, you don't find that. So one big thing is that you begin to see that the nakshatra animals have been linked depending upon the region you find itself in. So the different kind of astrology has different kind of animal linkage actually. So that is one thing also which I want to highlight in today's presentation. And of course, nakshatra animals, one easy way to understand nakshatra animals is that here, this is basically I've put all the pictures of the animals against the nakshatras. And you can see Ashwini is linked with horses here. Bharani with the elephant, Kritika is goat, Rohini is serpent, Mrigashira is serpent again, Ardra is dog, Purnima is cat, Pushya is again goat, Ashlesha is again cat, Magha and Purafalguni are rats actually, Uttarafalguni is bull, Hasta is actually buffalo, the Chitra is actually tiger, Swati is also buffalo, Vishaka is tiger again, Anuradha is deer, Jeshta is deer, Mula is dog, Purvashada is a monkey, Uttarashada is mongoose, and Shravana is monkey again. And you have Dhanishta as lion, and Satyapisha as horse, and Purvabhadrapada as lion again, Uttarabhadrapada as cow, and Revati as elephant. Now here, one couple of interesting things I can say quickly is that we all know cow is very auspicious in Vedic religion and all that. So cow, immediately it is interesting to say, there was a yogi was saying the last, one of the last lifetimes, one of the last lives or the animal lives anyone is going to take before they become a human is actually a cow actually. So you can see how cow is falling very nicely into the Revati Nakshatra, Uttarabhadrapada Nakshatra, which is falling in Pisces actually. So this is also very interesting because now say you have a planet in any of these signs or any of these nakshatras, these corresponding animals can actually influence you. Now, the other way to think about these animals is that these animals are the instinctive tendencies we are more likely to respond with when you are faced with situation. So for instance, some person who's having plant in Anuradha or Jeshta, the animal is becoming a deer, they are more likely to respond like a deer. So we have the deer facing the headlights kind of phrase, right? So you see a car coming your way and suddenly the deer freezes in front of the headlights. So Scorpio natives might literally respond like a deer because they're corresponding to the fear thing. Now, whereas you see Libra here, you can see it's Vishaka, they're having two tigers here actually, Chitra Pada 3 and 4 and Vishaka Pada 1 through 3 in Libra. So natives with planets here are more likely to respond like a tiger. They might, so they see a car coming their way, they're just more likely to jump on top of the car or something like that, attack like a tiger. So now, anyway, this instinctive responses is the animal instincts, the animal nature which we have all within us is more likely embodied by these nakshatra animals actually. So that is why understanding these animals, the animal psychology, the animal behavior helps you in understanding a lot about yourself and a lot about how the energy of a situation can actually progress ahead. And believe me, these animals are very, very powerful in terms of understanding karma. And not only that, in terms of remedies also, you can use them in very powerful ways. Now, here, of course, I have only specified the animals and I have not specified the gender of the animals. So that is deliberate. So just so that we can focus completely on the animal. Now, there are some animals which are male, some nakshatras are given masculine gender of their particular animal. Some nakshatras are given the female gender of the particular animal. All that is very, that is relevant. But for this particular topic, we'll just analyze the nakshatras and animals in various different ways. Now, another idea which Dr. Pai, which we have worked with before, is this idea of analyzing Rajasic, Tamasic, and Sattvic nakshatras before. This was as part of Pai Padidi topic and all that. We tried to present nakshatras with that. Now here I have this particular slide. I'm basically having all the Rajasic, Tamasic, and Sattvic nakshatras basically highlighted here. Now, of course, what is interesting is that you can see the first 9 nakshatras are falling within the Rajasic group of nakshatras. And within the Rajasic group of nakshatras, very interesting to see certain animals come repeating actually. So you can see 2 serpents, 2 goats are here. One is an elephant, one is a horse, definitely one is a dog here, and 2 cats here. So again, interesting to see pairs of animals coming up here. So 2 cats, 2 goats, 2 serpents, elephant, dog, and horse. So that's one interesting thing to see in the Rajasic group of nakshatras. And of course, if you look at these animals in general, they are slightly more active. Well, you might question that about a cat though, but perhaps you could make that argument that cat is getting closer to the border and all that. But no matter what, a goat is definitely an active, very Rajasic kind of creature. Elephant has its own thing. So elephant is very intelligent by itself. We have Ganapati who's elephant headed after all. And then you have Ashwini Nakshatra, which is literally a horse. Now, what is interesting is that among these nakshatras, you can further subdivide these triplets of nakshatras into Rajasic, Tamasic, and Sattvic groups also, which will be evident in the next slide. So so Ashwini Nakshatra is the most Rajasic nakshatra of them all, because not only is Ashwini Nakshatra falling in the Rajasic larger division, it's also falling in the Rajasic triplet within these first 9 nakshatras, and it is also the Rajasic nakshatra within that triplet also. So indicated by the red color here and all that. Now, same thing in the Tamasic group of nakshatras. What is interesting you see is that the animals, now 2 rats are showing up, 1 bull, 2 pairs of buffaloes, and then 1 pair of buffalo and 1 pair of tiger and 1 pair of deer. All of them are falling in Tamasic group of nakshatras. Now, of course, definitely we know that tigers definitely eat meat. They are a mamsahani, creature. And then after all, buffaloes are also interesting in the Tamasic group. And interestingly, Chitra Nakshatra becomes the most Tamasic of them all nakshatras, because if you carefully look at it, Tamasic is the middle portion. 5th nakshatra is Chitra here, and then if for the next 9 nakshatras here can be divided into Rajasic, Tamasic, and Sattvic. So the second division of second triplet would correspond to the Tamasic triplet, and within that, the Tamasic nakshatra is Chitra. So the Chitra nakshatra is having a special quality of tamas, to be frank, just because of that. And of course, the interesting thing here is that Swati is the nakshatra where Saturn gets exalted, and the animal linked with Swati is actually buffalo. Now, Saturn is the most tamasic graha of the model. Saturn, for instance, you could say Saturn is the slowest planet. Saturn is the planet that makes you lazy and all that. So, Saturn is the planet linked with delays and obstacles. And if you know a buffalo, we have a common phrase basically saying, "Gai gaya pani mein," right? So, like, the buffalo is inside the water. The buffalo is not going to move at all. The buffalo is going to stay like that forever, right? So, in fact, buffalo is actually linked as the most tamasic animal of the mod in that symbology. So, so that's making it very strong actually. So when the buffalo, when it goes into the water, then it just stays there forever, just like how Saturn would be.
Sandeep, I'm a bit confused. You were saying Chitra is the most tamasic, correct?
Yeah, you're correct. No, that's the important point. Chitra is the most tamasic.
Then why you're saying about Swati now?
Yeah. Now Swati is the nakshatra closest to Chitra. That is one way to look at that also. Yeah, but I'm saying about Chitra, of course, in the mathematical thing, Chitra is the most tamasic. That is correct. But in the Saturn aspect thing, you can see buffalo is actually the most embodying a tamasic. Of course, Swati is closest to Chitra, and Swati and Chitra is having the Venus linkage also. Venus is getting debilitated in Chitra. Venus is having his Multragone, Swati also. So that's an interesting thing. But
so nearby, still the
nearby.
Influence of nearby.
Exactly that.
Same thing we can see. Rajasic means the sun gets exalted at Ashwini, so which is Rajasic too.
Exactly correct. Yeah, sun gets exalted in Ashwini. Exactly correct. Now, what is interesting here is that if we follow the same logic, the next in the next 9 nakshatras, the most sattvic amongst the nakshatras is actually Revati nakshatra. Now, this is a very interesting thing because Revati nakshatra, you can almost say Revati nakshatra becomes the most sattvic because it's falling in the sattvic triplet in the sattvic big division, and not only that, it is the third nakshatra within that triplet also, which is making it sattvic further. So you have sattvic quality coming to Revati nakshatra, which is actually linked with elephants. Now, elephants is very interesting because elephants are used in temples and all that. They are actually used in rituals. Yeah, of course, cows are also used in temples. Now, you don't use a lion in temples and all that. So clearly they are white. Now, but having said so, in the sattvic divisions, you can see 2 monkeys are coming up, 2 lions are coming up. There is 1 horse, 1 dog, and 1 cow, and 1 elephant, which is coming up in the sattvic group of animals. Now, monkeys also is interesting because we have Hanuman, who is linked with who's a monkey god, and you have 1 mongoose also. Mongoose, after all, is also a very interesting animal which is linked with Kuber and all that. So that is also interesting in that regard. So usually you can now these nakshatra natives, as far as the gunas is concerned, this is one way how their gunas might actually play out. They might be more rajasic, or they might be having a tamasic tendencies, which is rajasic would be more action-oriented tendencies. Tamasic would be more delayed, less action-oriented tendencies, more laziness-oriented tendencies, or things approach in a more slower fashion. Sattvic is more supposed to be more intelligent or more balanced kind of a guna in that regard. Now, Sattvic is more intelligent. Sattvic is more lighter in that regard. That is one way you can see that also. Now, so this is one interesting thing to consider, and definitely there is a lot more you can do with that. Now here, I'm just highlighting the nakshatras again, the Rajasic, Tamasic, and Sattvic division. And here I basically have it repeated again also. Now, in Pai Paditi, there was one fundamental idea called as the soul cycles, in which we are looking at we are basically dividing the entire 27 nakshatras into 9 divisions. And one interesting thing here is that we were looking at how the triplets of nakshatras, which I was talking about. So here you can see clearly how Ashwini is becoming the most Rajasic because it's falling in the Rajasic triplet, and it's the Rajasic nakshatra within that Rajasic triplet. How Chitra is the most Tamasic nakshatra within that Tamasic triplet here, and the next 9 groupings of nakshatras, and the final 9 groupings of nakshatras. You can see Revati is the most Sattvic of them all, which is the final triplet, which is Sattvic triplet, and Revati is becoming there. Now, here also, these animal linkage with these qualities are interesting because you do see some interesting kind of tendencies here also in that regard. So, now that is something worthy of long discussion, worthy of research and all that. But Having said so, what I would say quickly here is this idea, how there is a progression of energies that is showing up, how you begin with horse and goat, and goat is basically exploring the mountains, goat is carrying its milk and all that. And eventually you will see that natives who are, now in some cases there were yogis who would basically say, this native came from a soul, and these animals can also be linked with this soul group kind of ideas also. So soul group kind of idea that, okay, the soul was like a cow before, the soul was a goat before, or the soul was like a, like a horse before, or something like that. So correspondingly, that kind of activities, which is more similar to the nature of these animals, is more likely to succeed. So for instance, say you have a plant in Rohini Nakshatra, which is basically the linkage with the serpent is seen. So clearly serpents are easily seen in farmland and all that, lands where you find serpent, which is jungles and forests and all that. So then you're more likely to find Rohini Nakshatra natives there actually. And now serpent is also having a lot of yogic kind of symbology. So usually these nakshatra natives might have an occult thing going on. They might be interested in occult sciences. That kind of thing can happen. But again, in the soul cycle aspect, some of these nakshatras makes it very interesting. For instance, you see the Shravan Nakshatra here is falling into the tamasic triplet, but it is a sattvic, tamasic and rajasic nakshatra, in which the gunas are completely different here. So that is one interesting thing. So Shravan Nakshatra, of course, monkey is the animal that is linked with Shravan Nakshatra here, and definitely Shravan Nakshatra is linked with traveling. Monkey is also definitely not a calm animal. It is going to monkey around, as we call it. So that kind of thing you can see compared to, let's say, buffalo in Hasta. Now buffalo in Hasta, of course, Hasta natives likes it to be fixed. So buffalo is also, like we talked about, how the buffalo tends to be a very fixed animal. And buffalo, of course, you see in India and all that, you see children who are herding the buffaloes, and buffaloes are very kind to children actually. So you can see Mercury getting exalted in Hasta kind of effect playing out in animal thing of Hasta here also. And of course, these linkages can be done further also. There are many levels to it. But here I have put all the animals in one screen. Again, in the basically put it in depending upon the aligned to the South Indian chart and all that. So certain nakshatras that are crossing certain signs, I put it across, put the animal picture at the border. So here Punvasu is again 3 padas in Gemini, 1 pada in Cancer and all that. So Uttara Phalguni 1 pada in Leo, 3 padas in Virgo. So I put the animal symbology here. And this is also very interesting because now here also a lot of animal classifications can be done. So for instance, let me use the North Indian chart where I attended something similar. So in the North Indian chart, here you can see some animals are counter, they are not having a similar nature. So clearly you put a lion and a deer together, there's a problem, right? So lion is going to eat the deer. So you might see those kind of instinctive responses. So Purvabhadrapada Nakshatra native with deer or Jeshta or Anuradha, you might see that these Nakshatra natives might be instinctively, they might be responding it in a different way. And of course, the other thing also, Uttara Phalguni, who is like which is the animal is bull here. And then say Uttara Phalguni, you put it with Chitra or Vishaka. Now you have another set of problems actually, because Uttara Phalguni is like bull who's fixed, who wants the food correctly, and is also very, very agitated. Bulls can be very agitated when they're agitated also. And then you have tiger who's keen on eating the bull or eating domesticated animal and all that. Now, of course, there is some animals which are domesticated, some animals which are wild. So in terms of that, Scorpio is interesting because you have tiger. Scorpio is ruled by Mars again. Tiger can be linked with Mars, and then deer and the 2 deers of Jeshta and Anuradha is interestingly linked with Scorpio. So pointing to how there is also fear factor and all that. Now deers are usually hunted. So Scorpio natives might feel like they are always getting hunted. At some point they're getting hunted, or this hunting kind of energy they'll actually feel because of this fear factor and all that. That is one factor you'll see. Now, interestingly, look at the Pushya Nakshatra, which is falling in Cancer in the 4th house of the zodiac. Immediately, you can see goat is one of the animals you domesticate actually. So, goat milk and all that you can see quite easily. And very interesting to see the symbol of Pushya is actually udder of a cow, and goat is also one of the animals from which you can get the milk also. And then of course Barney is linked with elephant. That is where Saturn is getting debilitated. So makes sense that Bharani Nakshatra natives are always going to have a delayed kind of thing just because they are having a elephant kind of animal linkage and so forth. And the other one of the other interesting animals here is also Satabhisha Nakshatra being linked with horses actually. And of course, Satabhisha is kind of 100 healers. Now the healing factors of horses are extremely interesting. Nowadays, nowadays there's an entire thing in which they actually put they send horses to hospitals and all that. You can actually see that, and that's a very strong way to see the healing energies of horses also. Now, how can you use this animal knowledge in order to improve a karma or in order to even remove the blockages you have? So one idea is basically using the animal totem as remedies, basically to connect with the energy of living animals. So to understand the animal behaviors, it is helpful in understanding the expression of planetary energies. No doubt about that, with regard to what I shared so far. Support animal sanctuaries connected with particular nakshatra totem animals. So say you give food, say you have offered some energies in the form of money or some financial support to any sanctuaries where a particular animal is being supported, and then suddenly you have offered this animal food through your own energy because of the financial donation, and eventually that particular nakshatra link with that particular animal can literally begin to unblock. It can slowly begin to remove its blockages for you. So perhaps when you contribute towards a tiger sanctuary, where the people who are closely linked with the tiger is actually supported, then because of that energetic interaction, the Chitra Nakshatra or Vishaka Nakshatra, where you might have planets, can actually open up for you quite easily. So that's an easiest way to do that. Feed or sponsor the food for the animal by donating to friend who has it as a pet or pet stores or to zoo. Of course, you might not have tiger as a pet and all that now, unless you're an Arab sheikh or something like that. Otherwise you're not going to have a tiger as a pet, or like Mike Tyson or something, right? So, but then, having said so, if you actually donate this to these causes, the food to the tiger, and you can do that in zoos actually. You can actually ask, I would like to support the tiger's food for a month. I would like to support the tiger's food for 3 months or 1 week, whatever it be, whatever you can afford. You'll see that one way or the other, if you do it periodically, that energy with connected with Chitra Nakshatra slowly beginning to improve. One way or the other, you'll actually see that getting improved actually. So usually I always encourage to directly connect with the zookeepers or to the animal sanctuary keepers and directly allowing that. That is one thing I usually encourage. And of course, this is a very powerful thing. Now, the other thing that can be done is that if you do have access to any of these animals, whether in the form of zoo or whether in forms of animal sanctuaries where you can visit and all that, this is one of the best things to do. To literally sit in front of these animals and to meditate upon the animals. This is one of the best things you can do. Now, depending upon the house number it is in, that many minutes at least you should sit. So 12th house, you should sit for 12 minutes, right? That kind of thing. That's one thing, at least that is a minimum requirement I would encourage. If that is done, that is a very, very good remedy in terms of that. And I cannot say this enough. It's an extremely powerful thing. So when you meditate, and you'll begin to see your karma literally playing out actually. So say for instance, you have Saturn 12th house from Chitra or something like that in Leo. And when you get to before you get to the animal of tiger, which is falling in Chitra Nakshatra, you will actually have Saturn kind of energies play out as obstacles also. That is one way how you'll see. The other interesting remedy, and this was a very popular remedy a couple of years ago, in which basically you draw the painting of an animal. You draw the animal totem in the color of a planet which is placed in. So for example, Venus in Chitra, the animal is tiger, the color of Venus, which is in Chitra, is off-white. So make the painting of a tiger in off-white color with a black background, just so that you can see the white color. So this is a very interesting remedy. So if you do this particular remedy, so normally I recommended this remedy before, and the logic for this remedy was that the Bhavat Bhavam of the 10th house of career is basically 7th house. Now, Bhavat Bhavam of 10th house is going into the natural 7th house of the zodiac, which is ruled by Venus, which is falling in the sign of Libra. So Venus is connected with painting. So I was just, okay, well, what if you actually draw, which is Venus, which is a Venusian act, and you activate the energies of the animals. Now, the animal energies are very interesting because the animals are more dynamic compared to plants. Now, plants is something that will grow in time, but the animal is definitely having more responsive nature and carrying more life energy or more movement energy compared to the energy of plants. So clearly, when you activate energy of animals, it can be very good in terms of activating it, energizing, at least opening up some energies further. And these animals have been around for a really long time. So more than humans, many of these animals have been around actually. So perhaps these animal energies could be much more older than human beings, and they could give us blessings through that also, just by acting, connecting with that energy. So that's one more thing to think about. So in fact, we do have various gods and goddesses having animals as vahanas or mounts actually. So different animals are also having linkage with gods and goddesses. So clearly pointing to that, these animals are also divine, no doubt about that. Of course, the color of the grass is here. So you have the sun linked with gold, moon with white, silver, Mars is red, green is the color of Mercury. Jupiter is linked with yellow. Venus is linked with off-white, as I mentioned before. Saturn is black and Rahu Ketu is gray. Of course, you might find other variations. Saturn can be blue, Rahu Ketu can be brown also, Ketu can be brown, all that. That is also the sun can be gold, yellow, well, orange is also Jupiter. All that variation is also there. But this is the color of the planet. So this particular remedy is interesting. Now, it was originally prescribed for the 10th lord of the Graha, so as a career remedy. So if you have a 10th lord career planet, you can actually try drawing the 10th lord planet in your charts, Nakshatra animal with the 10th lord planet's color. But in my opinion, you can do it all the other planets and see what you get. No, in fact, what I encourage is to actually draw the entire Navagraha planets in their corresponding nakshatra animals. So now all the grahas are activated, all of them will balance out each other. That kind of thing will happen. Now, having said so, if you draw a malefic planet, then malefic planetary energy will play out one way or the other, but it will happen in an intelligent fashion. At least you will know what is coming your way because you are activated that particular energy. But I've seen that 10th lord for sure, one way or the other, that karmas will open up or will point to a direction with regard to career and all that. That is something I have seen working also. Now, I also mentioned the deity connected with an animal. If you worship that particular deity, it is very, very good. So, for instance, here, a very good way to use these animal totems as remedies is to do the remedies for the gods and goddess which is connected with that animal. So, for example, tiger is a mount of goddess Durga. So, a worship of Durga is recommended for Chitra native very easily. So, reading Durga Saptashti, for instance, or the 700 verses of Durga. That is very easiest remedy you can do to improve the planets in Chitra or Vishaka for that matter. Even Purabhadrapada and Dhanishta also, you can actually do it because Durga is also shown riding a lion also. Celebrate and follow rituals during Navratri time. So then you will begin to see, because Navratri is a time usually linked with Durga. So it is a very powerful time period in terms of getting her blessings also. And like I said, because she is riding the animal of tiger and lion, those corresponding nakshatras will also improve its energy significantly. So it's almost like saying these particular nakshatras will be infused with the intelligence energy of Durga. So you will be able to handle this energy through these nakshatra animal expressions also. Now here it's interesting though, Durga with tiger is interesting to analyze from a chart perspective. You can see Durga is actually having, Durga is riding a tiger, and in between the tiger nakshatra. So you have Vishaka and Chitra and Vishaka here. And in between that, you have Swati, which is linked with buffalo. And of course, Durga was a goddess who actually defeated Mahishasura. So that interesting linkage you can see. So definitely tiger with Durga makes perfect sense. And that how Mahishasura Mardini being one of the names of Durga makes perfect sense here also. So that is interesting to see for sure, And now here in Kerala and all that, in South India for sure, there is the god Ayyappa, who is famously linked with Shani problems, and to resolve the Shani issues and all that, Shani karma and all that. Sometimes they recommend a pilgrimage to Swami Ayyappa's Shabrimala temple. Now, interesting thing is that Shabrimala is famously linked with having to get, he was asked to get, milk from tigers and so forth. And then he actually, the legend goes that he went to the forest, he actually got milk, and he came back with a bunch of tigers following him, and that's the legend actually. And now what is interesting about Ayyappa is that the Ayyappa season, or like the Ayyappa Vrata, the Vrishik Mass, when sun enters into Vrishik, is when you begin to take the fasting for Ayyappa. The moment sun has entered into Vishaka Pada 4 going into Scorpio, exactly at that point is when you start fasting for Ayyappa. Now, that's when the pilgrims who are planning to go to Shabrimala and all that, they will start fasting. And ideally, the recommendation is that you actually have to fast for 40 days. Now, people who are going to Shabrimala, they'll only eat food from temples. They won't eat outside food and all that. The fasting routine, protocol and all that is very strict before you go there. Only when you fulfill that are you usually, it's said that only if you do the strict 40-day fasting and all that will you actually get full results of the thing of Shabarimala and Ayyappa and all that, that kind of thing. So it is one of the interesting thing, and very interesting to see again when the sun enters into Scorpio. Now you are connecting with a warrior-like deity also. Ayyappa being linked with that. Now Mars is having an interesting linkage because Mars is actually the sign lord of Aries, where Aries is getting where Saturn is getting debilitated. So you can see this particular interesting way to actually improve or transform the Saturn's debilitation karma by fasting on Sun is in Scorpio. But remember, Sun has entered into Vishaka Nakshatra Pada 4, where Moon is getting debilitated. And Ayyappa is also having the story of having brought in milk from the forest, from tigresses and so forth. That is one more thing you see. Now, Lord Shiva is famously linked with Bull. Now, interestingly, Bull is actually linked with Nandi, and Bull is actually linked with Uttarafalguni also. Now, I highlighted here also the other animals that could be potentially linked with Shiva. So, for instance, the dog is falling in Ardha Nakshatra, that is also easily linked with Shiva. And then you have a Moon is actually getting exalted in Kritika Nakshatra, which is also linked with goat. So, Moon is actually, so Shiva is called as Chandrasekhara. So, you can see that particular aspect there. And then Kritika is goat. Kritika is the female goat, if I'm not mistaken. Male goat is Pusha. Pusha is going to Cancer sign, which is a natural 4000. During Shravan month and all that, you can see Shiva is basically venerated in India and all that. That kind of thing you can see. But yeah, Bull linked with Uttarafalguni. So of course, Uttarafalguni, interestingly, the symbol of Uttarafalguni is also Shivlinga. Actually, the Falgunis have an alternative symbol of Shivlinga. So it's a very powerful linkage between Uttarafalguni and Shiva and all that, and that is having its own depth and meaning and all that. Now, Lord Krishna is famously linked with cows. Now, interestingly, cow is linked with Uttarabhadrapada, and as I mentioned, cow is a very special animal because it's considered to be one of the final lives, animal lives taken before a human birth and all that. So, cow, of course, is a very benign creature, gives you milk, is very kind and all that. So, even among the animals, you have to be kind. So you say in the same logic, if you extend that to the humans, the moment we become like cow-like, right, with humans, then probably our moksha to the higher next life expression might play out. So, and of course, Lord Krishna is linked with Uttarabhadrapada. Now, what is interesting is that Lord Krishna is usually linked with Rohini Nakshatra because that is birth Nakshatra and all that. Now, Rohini is actually literally linked with snakes. Now, Lord Krishna did have a karma with the snake in the form of Kalya Mardana. So, Kalya Mardana chapter, he actually dances on top of Kalya. So, you can see that Rohini and snake link is playing out one way or the other with Lord Krishna. Now, Rohini is falling in Taurus, where Venus is getting, Venus is the Lord, and Venus is actually getting exalted in Pisces. So, it is interesting to see that Lord Krishna having a direct link there. Now, Venus is technically getting exalted in Revati Nakshatra, which is linked with elephant. Now, Krishna also, along with his brother Balaram, defeated an elephant along the way to meet his uncle Kamsa, whom he had born to kill and all that. So that kind of thing. Now, of course, cow is interestingly linked with Krishna here. Now, here I want to share some interesting information. Now, I listed all these animals, which is the more popular linkage of animals in North India. Now, when I actually I was actually talking to a Kerala astrologer, I was basically telling him how it is a very good idea for Uttarafalguni natives for them to donate towards bull. Now, this astrologer is like, what do you mean bull? Like, of course, that is the animal linked with Uttarafalguni. Then, so I said, that is the animal linked with Uttarafalguni. He said, then, well, that is not the animal. I said, what do you mean that is not the animal? Then he actually showed the Kerala Panchanga kind of thing. Panchanga that is popularly used by Kerala astrologers. He literally showed that the animals were different. So I was actually shocked by that. I was actually surprised by that because I've seen the animals that I've been recommending working for that. So, but then, interestingly, the animal variations that you see is different. Interesting, actually. So Ashlesha, for instance, they call it, the cat is a normal animal. The cat, a black cat is actually specified as in Kerala astrology, a black cat, Karimpuch as it's called. I mean, that is interesting because Mars is getting debilitated in Ashlesha. And Mars is also, can be considered dark character and all that, a dark color also. Purafalguni is actually linked with a house mouse compared to a rat. Now that's also one more thing. And now a house mouse is supposed to be more benign than the normal mouse you might find in cities or whatnot. But that perhaps that's a topic for debate. Now either way, it's mouse, but that is interesting. Now the big shift, as I said, was that of Uttarafalguni. Uttarafalguni, the animal, the original animal, one of the animal linkages is bull actually, but in Kerala it is usually linked with camels actually. Now, camel is something you find only in the desert actually. So it is very interesting to see an animal that is seen in the desert being prescribed here. So that is a very interesting thing. Makes you think. Go ahead, yeah?
Is it because, you know, a lot of influence of Middle East traders?
Exactly, yeah. It's a possibility, yeah,
Maybe.
100%. 100%. Of course, Middle East traders and all that. Kerala has had the history of trading spices with the Middle East, original
Correct.
spice capital of the world and all that. So definitely, it could have been because, so perhaps.
And you know, yeah. So bull is like what bull is used for here, as you know, as an agrarian society in India.
Yeah.
Probably camel is used in that Middle East. So probably.
Yes. Yeah,
who knows?
probably that. Yeah, exactly. So of course, Uttara Falguni is falling in Virgo, which is ruled by Mercury, and of course, Mercury is the trading planet. He likes to travel and trade and all that. So bull, of course, if you are a farmer,
and also hard work. You know,
hard work, yeah,
toiling
exactly.
work, hard work, sixth house.
Yeah, exactly that. So the sixth house kind of themes are hard work, and the animal that is used as your hardworking servant, which is bull in most of the farmers and all that, farm and all that, bull is the case. But then camel could have been the case because of the influence of traders. Now, camel is also interesting here because in some text, Rahu is given the co-lordship of Virgo. So Rahu can be considered as a foreign kind of thing also. So that influence of a foreign animal is seen even in Kerala astrology, even in the regional astrology. Now, the other interesting shift was that of Vishaka being linked with lion actually. Now, lion is interesting because lion originally was linked with Purvabhadrapada and Dhanishta. But here another Jupiter ruled nakshatra, which is Vishaka, is being linked with lion. So one is tiger with Chitra, the other is basically lion. So that is an interesting linkage. So perhaps Vishaka, now interesting thing with Vishaka is that it is also the birth star of sun. It is considered as the birth star of sun in some classics. So lion being the king of the animals, perhaps that is also one reason why that might have happened. Now, Jeshta, the animal, that is, it is the same deer, but the deer that is specified in Kerala astrology is basically barking deer actually. Now, barking deer is more brown in color. So that is also a very interesting thing, a brown colored deer, which is, of course, brown colored deer is very close to the earth, literally color like the mud and all that. So that kind of thing you can see. But yeah, this is also interesting thing. And of course, deer was used heavily, no matter what, in by Shiva and all that. In ancient times, there were many other uses with deer also. So this was very interesting.
What is barking deer?
Yeah, definitely it is not barking for sure.
Yeah.
But it actually, it is a brown colored deer actually. So I had to look at that. So it was a brown colored deer. Now technically it's called as Kera. Then I literally had to look that up. What Kera means in Malayalam, you know. So Kera, literally, I didn't even know what Kera meant. So Kera apparently meant like, and now the interesting thing is Kera is the deer name. The Jeshta name in Malayalam is basically Trikketa actually. So Trikketa and Kera sound similar. That's the first thing. Kera is literally pointing to a deer which is actually having the color of husk actually, the husk of the rice and wheat. The brown colored of husk. That is what the color actually given. So barking deer is that interesting in that regard. That is one thing you see. Now, but no matter what, the deer linkage is there. And then you see in Uttarashada Nakshatra, the animal which is mongoose. Now, Uttarashada Nakshatra is, we always use that Uttarashada as like, a mongoose does not have a female pair. So these Nakshatra natives are very independent. Now, interestingly, you see a bull, the animal which was originally prescribed for Uttara Falguni, which is another sun ruled Nakshatra being prescribed here in Uttarashada. So, which is a very interesting sort of a thing. Because bull, of course, now Uttara Falguni themes of sun rule themes of independence and all that is coming up here. But Uttarashada perhaps is different. Now, it is possible that in Kerala and all that, the bull might have been easier or regionally that energies might have been easier because of Uttarashada Nakshatra. The Nakshatra symbol itself is an elephant's tusk and all that. Now in Kerala, you find a lot of elephants. So perhaps in a region where Uttarashada Nakshatra is considered to be normal, where elephants are normal, bull kind of energy might have been considered to be easier. So certain regions might have certain kind of energies. Now the most fascinating among the animals is that finally you actually have two nakshatras where man is actually given as an animal. Naran as it's called.
What about before that? What about Shravana, Sandeep?
Oh yeah, Shravana, that's my mistake actually. It's actually, let's say, monkey actually. My bad. So it's monkey actually. There's a type.
I thought, is it something different? Okay.
No, my bad. So it was a monkey actually, my bad. Yeah. So of course, Purushada and Shravana is going to be monkeys. That's correct. Now here in Dhanishta and Purvabhadrapada, interestingly, you see man is actually given as the animal act. So perhaps it is an interesting kind of way to say that perhaps the animals are listed in such a way that it's pointing to eventually the animal evolution is pointing to a possibility where man himself is coming. Now, Aquarius is a sign where that is common between Dhanishta and Purvadapada. Saturn is actually having his Mutra in Aquarius. So perhaps the linkage with man is emphasizing the fact that you might have to serve man himself. You might have to be of service to mankind himself. And of course, Aquarius is connected with charities. Purvadapada is connected with festivals and all that. So you're definitely being of service through those means also. That can be quite easy. And interestingly, Dhanishta is a nakshatra where Mars is getting exalted. And definitely that exaltation energy of Mars, in which you are controlling you're becoming man-like, in which you're controlling your senses, you're elevating your yogic energies and yogic shaktis and all that. That can be linked with Purvadapada also. Of course, Purvadapada is linked with lion, and lion is also emphasizing the fact that it is the king of the animals. So perhaps man is linked here because man is also considered to be the kingdom, at least in this day and age, man is the king of the animals right now, because since it's ruling all the animals and all that. So this differences were interesting. So one thing I want to highlight with this is that it's not, so sometimes in certain regions, you might not find the original animals that are listed, but depending upon the region where you're in, you might find other animals come up actually. And that's a very important point. Many people might ignore that. So perhaps, for instance, you might have elephant is the Revati Nakshatra animal, but the biggest animal in your land, if you are in Africa, it could be, well, Africa is a different case. Say you are in Tibet or something like that, the biggest animal could be a yak or something, which is used like an elephant, that could be one thing. Now, so depending upon say for instance, monkey is Purvashada. Now, all kinds of monkeys can be linked with Purvashada also. But within monkeys itself, there might be other kind of monkeys. So you have monkey-like creatures like lemur, which are very slow and slow like Saturn and all that. So, there might be possibility, sloth, for instance. Sloth is a very famous arboreal creature, tree creature, which is extremely very slow. So perhaps these creatures might be embodying other kind of nakshatra energies also. Now, Satyapisha is linked with horse and all that, but again, you might not have a horse, but you might have a donkey. What happens at that point? So can you link Satyapisha again with donkey? Now, there are people who say donkey can be linked with Mula because of Dhumavati and all that. Dhumavati rides on a donkey, Jeshta rides on a donkey kind of linkage. So that linkage perhaps can work in terms of linking donkey with Mula. But having said so, donkey, perhaps you might have a horse-like creature in your farm, or the another creature show up instead of Satyapisha. So important thing to recognize is that the nakshatra animals will show up as energies that are more viable in the region where you're in. So there is a regional aspect within these linkages that is also playing up also. And that is one important aspect actually. And when you connect with that energy of that animals in that region, perhaps it might actually help you out. So in Kerala, for instance, Uttarashada, if it might be impossible to deal with a mongoose. So perhaps that could have been the original reason why a bull might have been linked here actually. So, and perhaps, like I said, a lion is impossible to find in Kerala. So for sure, okay, let's put a man there. Might have been what might have happened there also. So that kind of thing. So remember that. So these nakshatra, at least in nakshatra, that the beauty of nakshatra is that at least it's allowing these regional kind of energies or the variety kind of aspects of certain linkages to play out depending upon the region also. Now here I will put both the animals together. Basically, well, I just highlighted the different animals. So the black cat is still black cat, Ashlesha. Perhaps Ashlesha and Nakshatra natives are already having an inclination towards black cats. Perhaps that might be the case. And then you have, a camel with Uttarafalguni. Vishaka is lion here. Barking deer, which is brown in color, as I mentioned, with Jeshta. Uttarafalguni is buffalo here instead of mongoose. And man is linked with lion and lions of Purvabhadrapada and Dhanishta. So here again in the North Indian chart also, I basically highlighted the different animals in Kerala astrology compared to the normal Parshara astrology. Now this is the final set of slides I have. Now in Indian mythology, you do have various animal-headed gods and important characters. So for instance, you actually have horse-headed god who's Hayagriva. Now he's usually invoked before you want to begin anything also. Usually, so I recollect that Dr. Pai would share the prayers of Hayagriva also, before our classes and all that, before you teach. So Hayagriva is a very powerful deity in terms of sharing the Vedic knowledge and preserving the Vedas. So say you have a plant in Ashwini Nakshatra, say you have a plant in Santhip Krishnan Nakshatra, worshipping Hayagriva could actually help you out. Chanting his simpler mantras, chanting his totems, listening to his mantras can be very, very powerful ways to improve those energies actually. Now, interestingly, you have Narasimha linked with lion actually. Narasimha is a lion-headed man. And Narasimha famously defeated Hiranyakashipu, who he technically killed Hiranyakashipu midway and all that. So all that is there. Now, Narasimha is interesting because lion is the nakshatra linked with Purabhadrapada and Dhanishta, and we talked about Purabhadrapada in a different video in which we talked about how Narasimha came out of a pillar and how Purabhadrapada could also be linked with that pillar and all that. So of course, so Narasimha worship or Narasimha sadhana, any kind of Narasimha mantras could be equally good remedies for Dhanishta Nakshatra native and Purabhadrapada Nakshatra native. Now of course, Dhanishta Nakshatra native Narasimha makes perfect sense because Mars, the Graha, the avatar avatar of Vishnu, which is linked with Mars, being Narasimha, Dhanishta linkage with Narasimha is very obvious and evident. Now, Ganapati is very interesting. Now, Ganapati is considered to be a very powerful deity because he himself has 32 names, which can be linked with the 27 nakshatra. Interestingly, Ganapati, if you look at it from an animal perspective, he is actually carrying the elephant head actually. So that is directly pointing to Revati Nakshatra and Bharani Nakshatra because those are the elephant nakshatras actually. So definitely, if you now interesting the thing is that Bharani Nakshatra linked with Ganapati, no one really thinks about that. And no one really talks about that also. Ganapati is a person who actually creates the deity who actually creates obstacles. Bharani is the nakshatra where Saturn actually is getting debilitated, the planet that creates obstacles. So of course, it makes perfect sense to actually worship Ganesha first actually. So not only to Ganesha can actually be a remedy for your Saturn also, to be frank, in that regard. And 100% in my opinion, that will yield results. And of course, Saturn is also usually linked with Hanuman, who is actually linked with Saturn in many cases. Now, Hanuman is actually a monkey-headed god actually. Well, if you look at monkey from a nakshatra perspective, Purvashada and Shravana nakshatra is what you see. Now, one interesting thing about Hanuman is that Hanuman is actually the deity who traveled all over the way to Lanka. And then, he was able to, he had this traveling karma for sure. That was a solo karma. Of course, he had a war karma also in the Ramayana war and all that. So clearly you can see those nakshatra themes playing out. So Shravana is a nakshatra linked with traveling for sure. Purvashada is a nakshatra linked with war. So clearly you can see that particular theme of Hanuman's energy playing out. And of course, 100% Purvashada nakshatra native and Shravana nakshatra natives, if they worship Hanuman, 100% things will open up for them in that way. Now, depending upon the planet, that will be the way how you would like to approach Hanuman. So that is one way how you might have to see. And then, of course, I have the other deities here. Nandi, the Vahana of Shiva, the mount of Shiva. Now, Nandi is, of course, famously, you actually, in Shiva temples, you have to honor Nandi first. You might have to whisper your prayers to Nandi first, and then you honor Shiva. In fact, that is a requirement, actually. So without honoring Nandi, without becoming like Nandi, you cannot approach Shiva. Now, Nandi is the bull, and Nandi is fixed on top of Shiva. Nandi is only staring at Shiva. So if you want to get Shiva's blessing, you have to become like Nandi, right? So that's why you also honor Nandi also. You have to become very fixed. You have to control your senses. Now, a bull is a very agitated animal. You have to control, you have to calm down a lot. Only when that all that agitation is calmed down can you link with Shiva. So, and of course, Shiva is only capable of riding Nandi also. So that should be your state of mind. Your instinctive mind should have calmed down and become one with a calmed down bull, which is Nandi. And then, of course, you have the Kamadhenu. Kamadhenu is the cow here in the central, and Kamadhenu is of course the cow that keeps on giving, right? And differently, she is considered to be a goddess also. In many imagery, she is also shown with a cow head. In some imagery, she is given a female head and all that. And of course, this Kamadhenu is a cow that is very, very auspicious in terms of activating Uttarabhadrapada Nakshatra energies. And definitely, one way or the other, if you now in many cases, the symbology of Kamadhenu is with a calf actually. So you might find a smaller calf with Kamadhenu also, and that is also great for removing the obstacles of Mercury, in my opinion, because Mercury is getting debilitated in Uttarabhadrapada Nakshatra. So Uttarabhadrapada Nakshatra is linked with cow, cow can be linked with Kamadhenu. So worshipping Kamadhenu or having a Kamadhenu statue in your home or in your altar, puja room, mandir and all that, that is very good for improving that remedies also. And Garuda is the eagle-headed god actually, and he is the mount of Vishnu. So Vishnu is also, Garuda is considered as the king of the birds. So in that regard, when you honor Garuda, it's a very, very powerful way to seek his blessing. Now, interesting thing is that he is an actual eagle-headed god. Now, I not talked about birds at all here. Now, there is a corresponding linkage of nakshatra with birds also. There is a deep linkage there. There is a corresponding system there. In this particular thing, we just have animals actually in the presentation which I'm making here. But have no doubt that the birds also have its own power, its own strength and all that. If you honor those birds, it can be very powerful. And again, a regional-based classification of birds is also possible. So that might also happen. That requires further research and all that. But here, Garuda, in my opinion, the eagle in general can be linked with Vishnu. Eagle can be very, very powerful in that regard. And I can definitely say that when you see, and it's very common. For instance, when they do a Vishnu puja and all that, sometimes they'll actually say, go out, look outside, there'll be an eagle outside. And if you go out, you'll actually see an eagle flying out and all that. That kind of thing you can see many times, So Garuda 100% is eagle. So eagles in general, I believe it is linked with Purnima. It is also linked with Maga. It can be linked with sun energies in general. So eagle being the king of the birds, or eagle has been considered as the king of the birds. Ashwini Nakshatra, Maga Nakshatra, and Purnima Nakshatra. Purnima Nakshatra, I believe, because it's linked with Adityas and all that. That is one thing you can see. And then the final slide I have here is the imagery of the Egyptian pantheon. Now, in the Egyptian pantheon, some of the deities are very interesting because now you see animal-headed deities coming into picture here. So, for instance, you have Anubis, who's actually the jackal-headed deity. Now, Anubis is very interesting because Anubis is actually having functions similar to, he's considered as the god of the deserts. He actually protects graves, and he actually ensures the soul is actually taken to the the weighing scale before they're determined whether they go back to the earth plane or not, or whether they go to the heavens actually. And of course, there are many other deities also. For instance, Khnum is a deity who's actually having a deer head actually. Now, Sekhmet is a very famous lioness-headed deity. So perhaps you might see now nakshatra energies are working out in the world no matter where you are at. So Dhanishta Nakshatra, which is a lion-headed deity, a lion-headed nakshatra, or Purabhadrapada, which is another lion-headed nakshatra. These nakshatra natives might be naturally drawn to these kind of gods and goddesses, perhaps because of Sekhmet being a lion-headed goddess and all that. And of course, here there is another interesting thing to see is that Hathor and Isis here. Hathor is actually having the horns of a cow. And Hathor is very much similar to, you can say she's a mother deity. She nourishes, she's nursing children. She's a deity whom females worship, women worship and all that. You can see that in the cow horns, which is above her. And then you have Isis, who is actually having the bull horns actually. Isis is linked with wealth. Isis is linked with emperors. Emperors were rejuvenated with Isis. And Isis also was linked with fertility of the land. And of course, one of the very famous gods out there is Thoth actually. Thoth is the ibis-headed god who actually gave the scriptures. Thoth is actually functionally similar to Ganesha in many ways, actually. So Thoth actually wrote down a lot of things. Thoth is the moon god. Thoth is also a god who passed down the knowledge of astronomy, calculation, seasons, all that. Calendar system was given by Thoth. So definitely Ganesha-like symbology is very strong with Thoth's function. Now, what is interesting is that the Thoth is linked with, Thoth is actually linked with ibis. Now, the Ganesha can be linked with Mercury, but ibis, one of the nakshatra birds, which is basically black andril. Black andril is usually linked with Ardra nakshatra. Now, Ardra is actually, black andril is basically like a black-headed ibis kind of thing. It's like an ibis class thing actually. So Thoth is almost functionally close to Shiva in that regard. Shiva, at least nakshatra-wise, it is close to Shiva. Now, in that regard, it's interesting because moon god, right? He's the moon god. So it's the moon god. Very directly, you can see that. So there is one interesting thing in that regard. And then, of course, Horus is the one with falcon head, and Ra is also the one with falcon head. So that is there. Sobak is another deity whom I believe is carrying the energy of crocodile actually. So that is one more thing. And then, of course, the Egyptian pantheons have some more deities like that. You have the scorpion, literally with Selkis. So if you had a Scorpio-like problem, you probably worship Selkis and all that. That is one thing that might have happened. Now, of course, so what the idea here is that it is possible to approach certain realms of divinity through animals, and it has been going on for a really long time. In fact, these deities are sometimes called as typhonic deities, actually. Typhonic deities or animal-headed deities. it's pointing to there is a plane within us, within our own deepest aspects, where we are having these animal instincts within, and how you can explore the deeper aspects of ourselves and our own karma and our own consciousness and all that through these animals and so forth. But yeah, now these are interesting and all that. So this is what I have to say. This is the end of my talk. So Dr. Pai and Aditya, over to you.
Yeah.
I want to say this is absolutely fantastic, what you have presented. Aditya, do you want to comment anything? Because I have some points. That's what I was making some notes.
Yeah, even I was making some notes. Why not you go ahead, Dr. Pai, then I will talk.
Okay. No, this is very, very a topic that I will also be discussing as part of my research. And we have a conference which is coming up, which is organized by Shanati in November, between 17th November to 21st November. And one of the topics that I will be speaking, I have 2 sessions that I will be doing. Out of that, one session that I will be doing is on the same topic, but there I'll be talking more about the compatibility, sexual compatibility that is there with the yoni, and also looking at the quality of the nakshatras. Now, there is some deeper research that I will present during that time, but I would give you a hint of what I will be presenting. If you, Aditya, Santhip, if we can go to the slide where you're showing all the nakshatra, the animals,
yeah, sure,
of all the nakshatras. Okay, is there another one that will be not this one? There was another one that you had shown.
Yeah, the chart thing, right? Yeah.
South Indian format.
Yeah.
Or the whichever is fine. South Indian is better.
Yeah, sure.
Because that is easy for people to see and to understand what I wanted to say. Okay, this one. Now, just look at the picture here. Now, there is certain common themes that you will see. And this is what I wanted to highlight is, let's look at the first set of 9 nakshatras, which is from Ashwini to Ashlesha. In that, you will see that there are 3 animals which do not belong to the same clan, which means I'm saying they are Rajasic. So, if you look at it, horse, elephant, and the dog, they do not have a companion or a partner within the Rajasic group of nakshatras. The first set of 9 nakshatras are called Rajas. Okay? So they do not find their compatibility there. But where are they finding their companions? They are finding, whether it is the horse, the elephant, or the dog, are finding their companion in the Sattvic group of nakshatras. Correct?
Yeah.
So you see the horse, the elephant, and the dog are, so the first set you will see that you're finding it, the Rajas is finding its companions in the Sattvic. Now, in the second set of Tamasic nakshatras, what you are seeing is only the cow or the bull is finding a counterpart from the Tamas in the Sattvic.
Nakshatra.
So the bull and the cow. So that means all the others you see within the Tamasic, they are all finding their companions or counterparts in the same group or in the same tribe of Tamas. Right? And when we come to the last set, which is Sattvic, you will see only the monkey and the lion are finding a counterpart to each other in the same group. Understood? So one conclusion you can say is Rajas and Tamas group of nakshatras are compatible with Sattva. But if you see, there is no Rajas and Tamas, there is no animal which is there in Rajas which has a counterpart in the Tamasic. So Rajas and Tamas are not compatible. Rajas is okay with Sattva. Tamas is okay with Sattva. but Rajas and Tamas will not get. This is one principle of nakshatras also. You will see it work very, very well. Is to see when you are looking not only from the animal perspective, but you can also do the similar sort of exercise with seeing your nakshatra is either tamasic, rajasic, or sattvic. You look at it and say, where are you, your counterpart, which means your partner, your companion. Where is their corresponding moon sign, moon sitting, your moon and their moon, your sun and their sun. So synastry, when you're doing a synastry, you will see that if your moon is sitting in tamas and your partner's moon is sitting in rajas nakshatra, then there could be some compatibility issues. But if it is rajas and sattva, tamas and sattva, they will get along. But you have to look at other parameters. But this is just a thumb rule, is what I'm saying. Okay. Now, the next point I wanted to make, this is the most important point on which my research and my lesson will be taught. Now, look at the cat family. Now, what are the cat families? Cat family is all the feline animals which are from the cat family, which is tiger and lion. Okay. If you see the cat counterpart, which means cat are finding counterparts. The cat is in rajas, tiger is in tamas, and the lion is in sattva. Can you see that? And all of them are separated by only one nakshatra in between them. See, the cat, you see Punarvasu, then there is Pushya in between, and then it is next is, it's Ashlesha. So there is only one nakshatra in between the cats. So similarly, see the cat, which is the tiger. Between Chitra and Vishaka, there is Swati. There is only one nakshatra in between them. Look at the lion as well, which is Dhanishta and Purobhadrapada. There is Saptabhishak in between. So isn't it interesting to see that the cats, and look at the cat family. There is one cat member from the cat family in Rajas Nakshatras. There is one member of the cat family, which is the tiger in Tamas Nakshatras. And one member of the cat family is lion in the Sattvic. Now, besides the cat family, only buffalo and monkeys have been separated between themselves by a nakshatra. Look at a buffalo, which is Hasta Nakshatra. And what is his counterpart, which is Swati Nakshatra. So there is only one nakshatra in between, Chitra in between. Similarly, look at the monkey, which is Purvashada and Shravana. Only Uttarashada is. So there is some link between, the cats, the feline creatures, and the monkey and the buffalo. That's one thing. Then the next thing I want to say is there is a set of, yonis which are sitting next to each other. Which are those? It's a serpent, rat, and deer. You'll see serpent, Rohini and Mragashirsa, they are sitting next to each other. You see the rat, Magha and Purupalguni, they are sitting next to each other. They are not separated. That means they're very strongly linked to each other because they are consecutive nakshatras. And look at the deer, which is Anuradha and Jeshta. Now that gets me to certain variations that you will see. Look at the horse. The horse is separated very, very far away. So the male horse and the female horse, Ashwini and Shatabhisha. Similarly, you see the elephants, which is, they are maybe, there is only one nakshatra in between, but if you really start from, Aries and going up to, so that is almost like 12 signs away. Okay. Then you look at the cow. The cows they are probably on an axis. They are looking at each other. Uttara Phalguni on one side and Uttara Bhadrapada. They are like probably opposite nakshatras, we can say, to some sense, to some extent. They are opposite to each other, the cows. And then the dogs are also opposite to each other, which is Ardra and Mula. So this is like an axis. The axis of the cow, the Uttara nakshatras, Uttara Phalguni, Uttara Bhadrapada, the axis of the cow, and the axis of the dog, which is Ardra and Mula. So it is like these two are crossing each other. Okay. The only other thing where you see there is the goat, The goats are also separated. By between them, there is at least 4 nakshatras in between them. Right? The goat. The goat is a unique creature. Right? Then one more thing you will observe is cow and dog, the axis of the dog and axis of the cow. These are domesticated animals. Then the other 2 animals which are also separated is the horse and the elephant. They are not finding their counterparts in the same set. What is the horses and the elephants? They have been used since time immemorial for transportation and also carrying, the weight, like taking movement of heavy logs and things for building, construction, all of that, for movement, for agility. Even in the battlefield, there used to be a separate thing for elephants, people mounted on the elephants, and there was cavalry. Isn't it very fascinating? And this is why I wanted to say, if you look, I'll go more into that by, see, so totally there are 14 animals in total, 13 pairs and one which doesn't have a counterpart, which is a mongoose, right? All of those others have a counterpart. So when you were talking about the bull, which was connected to Uttara Falguni, in some old text I also found they have specifically mentioned the bull there, but they said it is a sterilized. It is not. See, Nandi is the most masculine, which means it is ready. It is masculine and it can reproduce. That is a bull. A castrated bull is like an ox, which can be used only for plowing the fields. A sterilized is what was reference which was given to Uttara Bharata. It means it cannot produce because it has been sterilized. Now, interestingly, this whole concept of these animals and these deities have also, you will understand that when you enter temples, and I will give you an example. The example is Jagannath Puri, Orissa, the most famous temple. The most famous temple has 4 dwaras or 4 entrances. The eastern entrance is called a Simha Dwara. Simha means the lion gate. That's from the east. The south direction, there is a entrance which is called as Ashwadwara, which means the horse gate. And these are literally, you can see 2 horses there. You can see 2 lions in the entrance, in the entrance to the temple. Then there is a western gate, which is called as Vyaghra Dwara. Vyaghra means tiger. That's in the west. And in the northern gate, there is elephants which are there, which are called as Hasti Dwara. So there is a symbolism of why people would enter from a particular Dwara. If you enter from the Simha Dwara, it is said that it gives you dharma. Okay, it is for your righteousness. To build righteousness in you, you enter Jagannath temple through the eastern gate, Simha Dwara, Lion's Gate. If you enter from the northern gate, which is Hasti Dwara, elephants, it is said that it is connected to materialistic opulence, which means you want to gain opulence in your life, materialism. If you enter from the west gate, which is connected to the tiger, that is set for Vairagya, which means for renunciation. And if you enter from the south gate, it is for Jnana, knowledge. Now, again, look at the whole significance. Eastern gate, Dharma, okay? East is the direction of the sun. Western gate is tiger, but west is associated with Saturn. So it's Vairagya, renunciation. Sun is Dharma, it's Lion's Gate. And you see the tiger's gate is for a renunciation. Now look at the northern gate. What is in Vastu, the north region? Jupiter or Mercury. Jupiter faces north. Northeast is Jupiter, north is Mercury as per Vastu, but north is the direction also of Jupiter. So Hasti, you see Jupiter is the largest, elephant is the largest land animal. Jupiter is connected to Hasti. That's why you see Brahaspati is sitting on an elephant. His mount is an elephant of Brahaspati. That shows his knowledge, but it also shows your materialism that is interested in the growth. Come to the south. Which planet rules the south? Mars. Mars is what? Action. Horses are the swiftest animals. It's all about they want to run, have their freedom, they want to be passionate. It's all the Martian qualities. And Mars, horse, Jnana. That's why we pray to Lord Hayagriva, who has a horse's head. He is the fountainhead of all the knowledge. He is also called as Aradhaka, which means he is prayed even to by Saraswati Mata, the goddess of higher learning and music, and Vak Devi, which means speech. She also appeases Hayagriva because he is the fountainhead of all kinds of knowledge. And he's crystal clear, Spatika. So there is so many inputs that I can give you. Maybe I will do during that session. I will look forward to seeing all of you there, because I will be talking more in terms of these animals and these associations, and there is something to do with the sexual behavior of these animals. Anyway, any questions or anything, or Aditya, you can share what you had your observations on.
Anyway, it's great, Sandeep and Dr. Pai. Thank you for sharing those. And I was thinking, maybe you may not say this now, probably you may keep it for your talk, but sometimes, as you said, some like snakes, rats, deer are all very close to each other, just next nakshatra. And some nakshatras, for example, Ardra and Mula are very far, totally diametrically opposite, Ardra and Mula. And the other one is basically your Uttara Falguni and Uttarashara, cow and the bull. So those are really very far. So do you see that these people have problems in relationships? Do these people have, because they are very far? And Rohini and Mrigashira, very close, Rohini, we know, very charming nakshatra, very second house, Venusian effect, attracting people and all those things. So maybe these people have tendency to attract, basically when the nakshatras are very close to their male or female counterpart, attraction is powerful. And people like, sorry to say, for Ardra and Mula or Uttara Falguni and Uttarashara, not Uttarashara, Uttara Bhadrapada, maybe something like that may be possible. I don't know. Probably I feel that because some charts I'm thinking of in my mind and then thinking about whether those people, Ardra, we can understand they are very far off, it's a Rahu's nakshatra and all those. And when the compatibility is not there, who is going to come? Anyway, so maybe possibility exists, even with the qualities of nakshatra, such as Ardra and Mula, very extreme qualities, to find a compatibility is not that simple.
Yeah, it's a very important observation, Aditya, what you say.
And talking this, my friend who is Rohini, he's just texting me. I don't know probably how that karma is. That's an omen, I guess.
Maybe he will get married very soon. Who knows? If he's not
and
married.
I know his behavior. He's Rohini nakshatra, so you can understand. Every time he come up with some problem of his girlfriend and all, and I'm like, okay, fine.
Right.
But yeah, so this can be possible. No?
That's a very good point. I also wanted to point out, it's very interesting to see that these animals that are connected also are connected in Vimshotri Dasha to the planetary energies which are opposite to each other. Like Ardra is ruled by Rahu, Mula is ruled by Ketu. So Rahu and Ketu are always opposite energies, right? That is the two, the dogs, the male and the female dog. Now look at Uttara Falguni, which is Sun, and Uttara Bhadrapada is Saturn. They are also, like opposite energies. Sun.
Okay, maybe.
Fascinating thing. So they have obviously opposite forces
acting on it. Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe those will be interesting, to anyway. So the other thing was basically I would like to say when about the book, there's Nakshatras at the Speed of Light, I think written by Kapil, because I know myself is the editor of that book, so I know that he explains very well how nakshatra, just using most in that book, mostly he specifies, starts with each chapter by nakshatra animals, and with nakshatra animals itself, you can talk about all the qualities of people of that nakshatra. So that's the power of understanding nakshatra by animals. I was fascinated to see that. Like, for example, Rohini, serpents, as I said. So what are those people? Rohini nakshatra people will be, for example, very much attractive, because serpents have attractive eyes and all those things. Wealth associated, because sarpas are associated with wealth, so they may be inclined to wealth associated themes. Then, for example, Purvashada, for example, monkeys, as Sandeep also pointed, monkeys, Hanuman, connecting lands. So these people may be going in different places, fighting wars. That's what Hanuman did. Rahul, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Ramayana, basically. Not Mahabharata also, he was there in the flag of,
correct, yeah.
Arjuna.
Yeah.
So some war associated. Now that doesn't mean that Purvashada will go and fight in some military. But they may have problems with their colleagues, maybe they have problems in their offices, something like that. Or even Shravana, you can talk in that terms, because again monkey themes. So like that, you can connect so many themes with nakshatras, and just by understanding, because see, understanding God and all, you have to understand the mythological stories and all. This is a big problem. But when you have animals, you are seeing animals in day-to-day life, their characteristics, their behavior, and just by that you can talk about the characteristics of the nakshatras and the characteristics of people born. So I think that's why nakshatra study of these animal studies of those nakshatras are very important, I feel. So that was one thing. I think to understand nakshatra, maybe people should start learning from this point, understanding animals and then associating animals with normal day-to-day life and trying to understand nakshatra quality. That may be one for people who are going to enter into the study of nakshatra. That can be a point. The other thing was, what is my other point here? Kerala animals, which you said,
Right.
was very interesting too. And how that list. So we see that 27 nakshatras, so they each pair, as Dr. Pai was saying, and then only mongoose is left out.
Yeah.
Do we see that all pair? Because here I don't see any pair for camel here.
There is no
again,
pair
and
for
it's again in
camel, yes.
Uttara Falguni.
That's correct, yes.
But again, that means again Uttara Falguni, so they have problems with finding a pair, maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
So only the Uttarashada is bull and then Uttara Falguni is camel. So that difference is there. And the pair actually, and then Vishaka pair is tiger and lion, which is one thing. And of course, Dhanishta is man, that thing. So that's very unique actually. Yeah, true.
Okay, and I guess Pura Falguni, why it is house mouse, because they are much more tamed,
Yeah.
and that may tell you Pura Falguni people may not go out, may like to be sit at home,
That's correct. True.
I'm a strong Pura Falguni, I know that, because I can say for my own behavior, never used to go out of home. Even now I will be at home, always. So, but that makes sense to me. Why? Because house mouse. I'm like a house mouse, sitting inside home and always going in the kitchen and eating something. Exactly house mouse.
Right.
So that makes sense why it is. So that was it. But it is the other point which I was like, which is, I don't know the answer. Probably I think probably I don't know your points, because it's a very deep question. What is the reason behind associating these nakshatras with animals? From where it stemmed? And that could, because I was trying to understand why nakshatra animals in Kerala astrology have this different thing. So then I thought, maybe why, if I ask that question, why not go one step behind and ask the same question? Why we have these nakshatras given and these animals given? On what basis they have given this these qualities and this nakshatra, these particular animals with this nakshatra? That is something I don't know the answer. But that is something to be pondered of. And then, is there any secret there? Is there anything which we could learn from that? And if we could understand that secret, probably we will be able to understand many things.
Yeah, I'm inclined to say the idea for that, at least in my opinion, is that if you can link, so clearly, probably the ancients were very, very much in alignment with nature and all that. So they probably were able to see much more than what we could, perhaps, And I'm of the opinion that perhaps they were actually observing patterns within the animal kingdom themselves also. So perhaps during certain seasons, they might see more animals prominently there. Or perhaps the other thing easily I would say is that the energies, perhaps they were able to recognize the energy. So for instance, we have as Dr. Pai mentioned, Uttara Falguni is bull, and how the Ardra and Mula is opposite to each other and all that. So perhaps the linkage with the deities. Now, we have to remember all the gods are also forces of nature, actually. They have their corresponding expression through nature. Shiva being the god of storms, and then perhaps it could have been like a storm was about to come, the dogs start howling. So linkage could have been very direct with that regard. Perhaps with Mula also, Mula Nakshatra, when you are trying to, Mula is very interesting thing. I can see that one thing. So Mula, interestingly, you can actually grow this black turmeric for Mula. So black turmeric is a plant linked with Mula. So you can grow black turmeric. So when you actually plant black turmeric, and I actually tried this actually in one of my gardens, I actually put a black turmeric. Out of nowhere, a dog literally went and smelled this plant. Like a dog literally walking the street. What is this fragrance? I had to go back and smell this plant actually. So literally, perhaps the linkages were already there actually. So when one particular energy is worshipped, perhaps the other kind of animal energy is linked to that energy has to show up at that point. So that is my observation. So if you're worshipping Shiva, dogs has to show up there. If you're worshipping Kali, some kind of cat has to show up there, something like that, So because these natural energies are there, that's why, in my opinion, the nature's energies could actually be linked to that. So from that perspective, one of the most interesting TV channels should actually be Animal Planet, Frank. Because once you understand all the animal behaviors, 100% you can understand the office politics, in your office politics, your house politics, whatever is happening, everything can easily be understood, in my opinion. So Animal Planet and Discovery Channel and all that, if you start watching that, opinion, that's true. But more importantly, I think in response to Aditya's question, if you have that energy being worshipped, it has to attract corresponding plants around it. It has to attract corresponding animals to it also. In fact, one thing I can say is that I know someone who actually chanted Vishnu Sahasranam a lot time. They did Vishnu Sahasranam every day. And then eventually 6 months later in their home, someone came by and said, oh, look at this plant. This is a plant which is favorite to Krishna that bloomed out of nowhere there actually. So sometimes when you actually grow and they didn't even plant that plant, so that kind of thing. So that kind of thing you can see playing out. So when you connect with gods and goddesses, and when that certain energy is maintained, that energetic vibration will definitely attract corresponding animals. So the ancients who were 100% more in alignment with nature than us, probably they were able to okay, this nakshatra is this animal for sure, because the energies that were linked and so forth. So that is the only logical explanation why they would be willing to do any kind of animal thing. So once you see that, right? So once I saw this particular black dog, I'm like, what's going on here? Yeah, Mula, of course, the dog had to show up, that kind of thing. So that was perhaps, as you correctly said, there's definitely something deep going on there, though. 100% there is something deep going on there. That I can say for sure. Now, in my opinion, if you are a Maharaja in ancient times, you're more likely to have all these 13 pairs of animals. You would have these 13 pairs of animals. You'd probably be feeding them regularly. Some Goshala is there. There's a Goshala for buffaloes. There's a Goshala for cows.
That's what Dr. Pai was saying. No? They have a garden with all that plants.
Yeah.
27
Nakshatra,
plants there, Nakshatra garden and all.
Yeah. So but if you...
I just wanted to add, sorry to interrupt. All of these questions what you're asking will be answered in that lesson. I've already done some preliminary work. Some more work is yet to be done. Whatever you're answering. Now, for example, let me give you one small example from the Kerala astrology animal. One thing that Santhip showed also, Ashlesha is a black cat. Now we know when a black cat crosses, what happens. In Egyptian people are superstitious because that Ashlesha's energy has crossed your path. Ashlesha has crossed means what is Ashlesha's energy.
Yeah.
It's difficult energy to deal with. The sarpas and nagas. That means something bad omen. So maybe the black cat, because it's a cat, but it's a black cat specifically, which has been mentioned for Ashlesha. So there are so many such hidden stories which are there. And I will be discussing more about that. It's also about how the animals procreate. Their gestation periods will also give you some hint to understanding this. Because if you look at the snakes are not mammals. They hatch through the eggs. Right? So I will leave because otherwise probably I'll give too much of information, then people will know what I'm going to talk about. But I will say it is going to be a 2.5 hours lecture.
You should put that link, maybe that link. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll put that link. will also be doing some, some sessions with Shanati on my, my topics that I'm going to speak about. But it's going to be more short version. But this lesson that today, what Santhip has presented, I think it's a very invaluable lesson. And I also will be discussing about the clash animals, which we say, there are certain animals which do not get along. Now, it's very easy to look at the nature and say, well, for example, a serpent and a rat will not get along. A lion and an elephant will not get along. A tiger and a cow will not get along. So those are the natural, adversaries, you would say. These are the clash animals that are there. So I will be discussing about that. And
that's actually in marriage,
compatibility, but where I will be going more deep during this session is why sometimes certain animals will not be sexually compatible, because on the behavior of the sexual behavior and the sexual interaction and the exchange that happens between those animals are not compatible. Maybe not what we see as adversaries, but there is more to that, and that I will be discussing in the lesson then. But these are very valid questions, and I think that will be answered, most of those questions, in that conference, which is the Parashara conference, which Shanati is organizing in November. The ticket sales are out, so you can go and register for the conference. And Santhip and Aditya will also be presenting at this conference. So I will look forward to their lesson.
We have a completely different talk.
That's going to be very interesting.
And the other point, just maybe one just quick point, when we were talking about planetary exaltation points, and for example, we said the sun is exalted as Ashwini, it's all completely Rajasic. If you say completely Sattvic Nakshatra is basically Revati, where your Venus is exalted. So that tells that if you say Venus, of course, you may think of Rajasic, but Venus is extreme devotion, extreme, so extreme Sattvic Nakshatra. So that's another quality. Of course, Venus is sex and all those love and all those we say, but that's a gross form. Little bit much more subtler form of Venus is basically the highest devotion, Anandamai Ma and all those things, Revati Nakshatra. If you see her chart, we will discuss when we discuss the Nakshatra of Revati. So that tells us planetary exaltation points and associating this which nakshatra they exalt, and then what is Sattvic, Rajasic, Tamasic, and some relation. That's also something interesting to see, and that can be whole different topic.
No, that is definitely true. That's a very good point. Also look at the animal associated with the most Rajasic, most Tamasic, and most Sattvic, which is horse, which is tiger, and which is elephant. All of these three animals are usually used in Hindu traditions, attached to some deity or the other. Even at entrances of houses, entrances of temples, religious places, these two, are usually there. Which is the elephant is usually there, the tiger or the lion usually will be there, or the horses will be there. So that is very, very important to see. No figurines of dogs will be there, camels will be there, or rats will be placed at the entrance. Entrance is always, as I said, Jagannath Puri. There are only 4 animals, which is the lion, the tiger, the elephant, and the horse. These are the 4 entrances of Jagannath Puri. What I'm given to believe is because government now allows you to only enter to one particular entrance now. You can't enter as your whims and fancies like it was before. Because just to regulate the inflow and outflow, maybe people are entering from one dwara and coming out of another dwara, but I do not know which dwara there is open now for the public. But in the past, you could have entered the temple to any of the dwaras to enter the main temple.
I wonder, Dr. Pai, is it possible then you enter through one dwara and then you leave through other dwara? Could you get the corresponding results accordingly?
Imagine you enter through the Dharma Dwara and go out of the renunciation, West Dwara. So that means you are looking for renunciation. But if you are entering through, the Jnana Dwara and coming out of the materials, through Jnana, you can probably make money, right? From the south, you go towards the north, or from the east, you go towards the west. So east is Dharma, west is renunciation, sannyas. East is sun, west is Saturn.
Yeah. It's interesting.
So you enter through the south, and opulence. So again, I wouldn't know because I've never been to Jagannath Puri. That has been a long on my laundry list of places I want to visit. I definitely want to go there. But what I believe is you can now only, the government has regulated that you can only enter because of the number of people who come to the temple. If you start allowing all people to enter from there, then it's going to be a complete chaos inside the temple. So I am given to believe the only certain dwara is open and you can only exit through the other dwara. Anyway, so thanks very much, guys, for the time. And I have to go now, as I said. But it was very, very fascinating, Santhip. Thank you very much, and Aditya as well for joining and sharing all this wisdom. So
thank you.
Happy Purnima to all of you.
Happy Guru Purnima.
Bye-bye.